The sound of inhumanity, the most terrifying sound in the world. The cruel, endless tramp of marching feet as the invader grinds over a small country, bringing desolation, hunger, and death. This is the sound that echoes through the Far East. It reached Tibet, and only 50,000 Tibetans have managed to escape into freedom. We present the story of their hopes and beliefs and their longing to return home.
The wind of evil, no matter how fiercely it blows, cannot extinguish the flame of truth. There was peace on the roof of the world, a quietness that lasted for 1,200 years. The people tilled the earth and bred their yaks, and though there was no abundance, there was no famine, no greed, and no killing. For the spirit of the Lord Buddha filled the land, and a sense of religion pervaded even the wildest places. Of the world beyond, even the spiritual leader, His Holiness the Dalai Lama, knew little.
So we were happy. Desire brings discontent. Happiness springs from a peaceful mind.
A hurricane of terror shattered that peace. It was 1959, the year of the Wood Dragon. The Chinese army had come to liberate the people. The Fred Kano army of Tibet met them bravely and quite unrehearsed. Sticks and stones against high explosive, ancient rifle against machine pistol, iron cannon against howitzer. Civilians were slaughtered by the thousand. The Chinese set out to destroy the spirit and the religion of the people, and woe betide those who refused to submit. Crucifixion, burning at the stake, drowning, strangling, the more fortunate was shot. The Chinese were intent on destroying the religion. Holy buildings were wrecked, sacred books and prayer flags wantonly destroyed, and the Buddhist priests, the lamas, tortured and killed. Children were torn from their parents and sent to China to be drilled in the communist dogma. To preserve their religion and their old way of life, the people urged the Dalai Lama to flee to India. He knew that resistance would cause further bloodshed. The exodus began. In little groups, or sometimes quite alone, 50,000 people followed him on the long trek over the forbidding mountains. Behind them in their homeland, the communists were busy uprooting the religion of peace, a religion that expects one male from every family to become a lama and devote his life to prayer. To keep their religion alive in their new land, the refugees, led by the lamas, built a temple in Happy Valley, the women giving what gold and jewels they had left to make it a place of beauty. Its library contains the 108 volumes of the Lord Buddha's teaching, which the lamas smuggled over the border. This is the center of Tibet in exile, the holy place which binds the people together and holds them to their peaceful way of life.
The children are our jewels and our precious hope for the future.
Good morning.
The future of a nation. Such a burden for childish shoulders to bear. Yet even the smallest of these children are quick and eager to learn. In Happy Valley, beside the Buddhist temple, an entire village has been created for children. Homes and nurseries built by voluntary organizations from all over the world, and a hospital built by the National Christian Council of India. The Indian government provided the school buildings and the many teachers. Healthy bodies, healthy minds. This is the picture the visitor sees, yet almost every child has a story of tragedy or terror. Tenzing Norbu, fleeing Tibet on the same night as the Dalai Lama, came across the freezing passes, always in fear of an unpleasant death from the Chinese.
In the night. But then we came across and we went through villages and asking for food and shelter. And we got, on the way we had many planes attacks and they attacked us at 5-6 times.
Faith was my support and obedience my only guide, says Mrs. Tering, who organized the Tibetan children's homes at the request of the Dalai Lama. And the modernization of these medieval people begins here with American and European cast-off clothes. For when shirts and trousers, tunics and skirts replace the accustomed robe, a subtle change of outlook must begin.
Poor things, they couldn't carry very much of their belongings because they were very anxious to bring their children safely to India. And that's why that these children and their parents are suffering a lot. So we are taking care of these children in the homes. And we get so much help. The people all over the world have so much sympathy towards us that these children are very happy in the homes.
Here, in safety and love, the children live while their parents work in other parts of India. Here, each day, every child says grace at meals, worships for an hour, studies his religion of non-violence, and learns more about the modern world. The National Christian Council of India, supported by Christian Aid and the World Council of Churches, has helped in many ways. Money, food, milk, medicines, even to providing fresh fruit and proteins, because monkeys stripped the fruit trees and leopards ate the chickens. In the children lies the only hope for the future, for the old will die and the middle-aged are set in their ways. But the children will fuse the old ways with the new, so they need extra care and attention. Sister Ariel of the Save the Children Fund cares for the sick in this hospital built by Indian Christians.
They're the nicest children in the world. They're very good-tempered, very polite, very nice altogether. They never fight. I don't know why, but they're charming children. It takes them about a year to travel from Tibet to India as a rule, and during that time they're very short of food usually. Practically anything that is sent to us can be used, even if we don't use it ourselves. We did get a consignment of ice bags that we didn't really need, but we do let the small children play with them so they're not altogether wasted. There's quite a lot of TB up here. It's in the plains that they're pretty bad. They can't stand the hot climate. This is a deaf child. We know that she can't hear, and that there's something the matter with her walk. I think she must have had some cerebral illness. We've written to see if we can find out anything, but I don't really expect to.
Hot cross buns, hot cross buns. If you have no daughter, give them to your son. One a penny, two a penny, hot cross buns. Hale go go hale go go. Row your boat gently down the stream. Merrily, 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 like we start a dream. Down, 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 call down. Give us any, give us any, give us any, give us any, singing laundry.
The scent of strange flowers, the sound of strange birds. San Cho will never see Happy Valley, but she can feel the warmth of home. Beyond the mist, beyond the clouds, the distant icy peaks of home. I will lift up mine eyes to the hills from whence cometh my help, the eternal cry of the exile. Tibetans dream of going back one day, and yet it may be many generations before this dream comes true. Soon after they arrived in Darjeeling, 4 Tibetans began making carpets in an old cowshed. Now 300 men and women spin wool by hand and toe and dye it in the ancient way, using special leaves to produce colors which will not fade. They weave exotic patterns, unknown till now in the Western world, and already the sale of carpets brings in several £1,000s each year. But no sales ledger can measure their pride in earning their own living again. While the mothers spin, their small children are cared for in a nursery and a creche, with foster parents as well as trained nurses to look after them. Before the center was opened, nearly 200 Tibetan children were wandering the streets of Darjeeling, finding food where they could, begging to stay alive. Now they have free milk, food, clothes, and an education. Not all Tibetans can live in the northern hills within sight of their country, for there is not enough land to farm. Here in southern India, the government cleared 4,000 acres to establish a farming community, giving each man 2 oxen and a simple course in agriculture. To many, farming was difficult, for they'd been herdsmen. Yet they persevered, they learned, they settled and farmed, working hard to become independent of help from outside. The women too work in the fields, and when they work they sing. There is always the sound of music, for the Tibetans are a singing race. The bold songs of the nomad Kambas, the pipes of the herdsmen, play music that was born in the wild mountains long, long ago. But often now the words are new and describe the tragedy of their homeland. Even after 10 years and more, they are still strangers in their new land. They like to keep to their own kind, and marriage with Indians is discouraged. Above all, protected from evil by their prayer flags, they remain strong in their Buddhist faith. The Chinese found it impossible to destroy this faith. Even in the teenagers they captured and took back to China. At last they gave up trying to convert them and took to snatching the infants from their mother's arms. It doesn't take so long to indoctrinate a baby. The Amdo people come from the Great Eastern Gorge, that part of Tibet first invaded by the Chinese in 1950. These dancers were part of a professional troupe, and among the very few Tibetans ever to travel outside their homeland. They were in India when the invasion began, and when stories of repression and mass killings came over the border, they chose to remain in exile. They're a happy people, like all Tibetans, and they have the lively sense of humor that goes with an independent spirit. They say there is no clapping tax in India, as there is in Chinese-occupied Tibet. When asked what this means, they explain that in old Tibet, taxes were always paid by extra work, but now there is a new tax. Whenever a Chinese official visits a village, all the people must turn out and clap to show their joy. This is very tiresome. About 25,000 Tibetans live in roadside camps, working on new strategic highways. The Indian government pays them, and the National Christian Council gives much of the extra food and vitamins they need. When they first came to India, they began dying like flies. The heavy enveloping heat, the dust, the humidity, these were conditions they'd never met in their cold, clean mountains. They had no immunity from tropical diseases, malaria, cholera, typhus, dysentery, tuberculosis, and leprosy. To help slow the spread of disease, the Indian government and the Christian Council, working closely together, set up mobile clinics on the borders, staffed by Indian and European doctors, many of them Christian missionaries. But these doctors were fighting ignorance and fear as much as disease. A Tibetan still believes that illness is caused by sin, and a sick man will visit his Lama to seek forgiveness and then to be cured by prayer. It takes time to understand that prayer, except in rare cases, is no substitute for antibiotics and immunization. The call for modern medicine is still great. Near the border, Dr. Duncan, a missionary, runs a hospital and leper colony. It's supported by the Presbyterian Church, gifts from all over the world, and by her extraordinary faith that these gifts will continue to come in as long as the need exists.
Tibetans are particularly susceptible to TB because a great many of them in Tibet did not in fact meet the germ until they came to India. So therefore they had no immunity at all to protect them. Secondly, they came down, many of them taking a long time on the journey. They had no food, and when they got to India they had a new kind of food to eat which they didn't like, and so they were malnourished. And of course they had to live in very overcrowded conditions, so that if one person had it, very quickly they all had it. This man is a case of TB of the chest, and is beginning to object because we give him so many injections. Little Sonam looks rather pathetic now, but she was, in fact, just a riddle of bones when she first came to us. She has not been fed or loved adequately. She has rather a sad story. While she was in Tibet and the Chinese trouble started, she actually saw her husband killed, and this affected her mentally, so that when we first knew her, she was a very sad sight, behaving rather like Ophelia, wandering around singing with flowers in her hair. This man is a very old friend. He's been with us now for more than 5 years. When he came to us, he was in already a very bad condition with TB, not only of the lungs but also of the spine, and it's unlikely that he will be with us very much longer. But our main aim is to treat adequately and also to diagnose early, so that when the disease is in the early stages, we can hit it really hard and cure it.
The Indian government has given His Holiness the Dalai Lama sanctuary and offer him their hospitality wherever he goes. His Holiness keeps in close contact with his people and tours the country, visiting them in their camps.
This is a very great pleasure, sir.
On one of these tours, while passing through New Delhi, he met the Reverend Dr. Harry Haynes, the representative of the World Council of Churches. To his people, the Dalai Lama is divine, the 14th reincarnation of the first Dalai Lama, born centuries ago.
Your Holiness, 20 years ago, I visited Gombun when I had just come to China. I understand this is very near to your home.
Yes.
And now you are a long way from your home, here with your people. How do you feel about this new situation that you have come into, sir?
I am glad to hear that you were once near my birthplace, but since then there have been many changes, all of them bringing much sadness. We are trying to create something valuable here, but we cannot expect quick results. But I am certain that in the end we will succeed and return to our country, because we have truth on our side, and truth always prevails.
Your Holiness, many who have visited your people here in India have noticed the very great love and affection that you hold for your children. What do you think tomorrow holds for them?
We know we are still backward in the field of education, and we suffer from it. We do realize the importance of modern knowledge, but at the same time we cannot neglect our own ancient culture and religion, which prepares one for this life and the next. So our children must be taught our own learning, side by side with modern education. And so it has become part of our spiritual duty to help our children by teaching them how to live with the demands and benefits of the modern world, without losing their innocence or the ideals of their ancestors. Our children are the jewels and precious hope for our future. With few exceptions, they are very intelligent, capable, and very lovable.
Your Holiness, we do not belong to the same faith. I'm a Christian. You're the spiritual head of your people. As you have come into contact with Christianity and with other faiths here in India, what has been your experience?
Although in some ways our faiths and beliefs may be different, our goal is the same. All religions teach us to be simple, to obey the moral law, and to love one another. So it is very important for us to understand each other's religion. Today, there are many people who have no religious beliefs. Therefore, it is important that we who do believe live in harmony together and set an example to those who have no faith at all.
The remnants of a nation scattered like dust over a vast continent. A holy man as their leader. A man who turns his face against violence and forgives his enemies. Who commands that the children are taught to love and not to kill. What hope have they in a world dominated by brute force and the hydrogen bomb? Yet how precious is their philosophy of peace. How poignant to hear once again the echo of those words spoken nearly 2,000 years ago in Galilee. Love one another.
Our children are the jewels and precious hope for our future.
wind of evil, no matter how fiercely it blows, cannot extinguish the flame of truth.